When my son Michael told me he was too busy building his career to deal with elderly health drama and that I should figure out my own medical situation like other independent seniors, he had no idea he was speaking to Dr. Eleanor Catherine Hartwell-Sinclair, former Chief Investment Officer at Meridian Capital Management, whose $47 million private wealth portfolio included the very venture capital firm where his tech startup had received its $2.3 million Series A funding, whose private foundation controlled educational trust funds that had paid for his MBA at Northwestern, and whose discretionary inheritance planning held the $2.1 million estate that he had been confidently assuming would secure his family's financial future, never realizing that the sick old woman he refused to visit during her cardiac emergency was actually the silent benefactor, whose decades of strategic investment and family financial planning had created every professional opportunity he considered evidence of his own entrepreneurial brilliance and business acumen. My name is Dr. Eleanor Catherine Hartwell-Sinclair. I'm 74 years old, and this story begins on March 8, 2024, when I was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago with what doctors initially feared was a major cardiac event. Crushing chest pain, irregular heartbeat, and blood pressure readings sent the emergency room staff into immediate crisis mode, only to discover that my desperate attempts to reach my only son during what I thought might be my final hours would reveal his true character and trigger the most comprehensive estate planning revision that the Illinois probate and wealth management community had ever witnessed. The cardiac episode had begun at 2:47 a.m. while I was reviewing quarterly investment reports in my home office, a sharp stabbing pain that radiated down my left arm with the unmistakable intensity that every woman my age fears might signal the end. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes of my 911 call, and by 3:30 a.m. I was connected to monitors in the cardiac intensive care unit, watching the concerned faces of medical professionals who were taking my condition very seriously indeed. As the nurses established IV lines and the cardiologist ordered immediate testing, my first instinct was to call Mike, not because I needed him to make medical decisions. I had comprehensive advance directives and medical power of attorney arrangements in place, but because I believed that if this was indeed my final night on earth, my only child should know, should have the opportunity to be present, should understand that his mother was facing what might be her last few hours, and that perhaps our relationship deserved more than the perfunctory holiday visits and brief phone conversations that had characterized our interactions over the past several years. To understand how my son Michael David Sinclair, a 42-year-old tech entrepreneur running Innovate Tech Solutions with 47 employees, $8.9 million in annual revenue, and a carefully cultivated reputation as one of Chicago's most promising startup founders, while living in a one-point townhouse with his wife Amanda and their twin daughters, ended up watching his expected $2.1 million inheritance disappear through legitimate estate planning protocols within 96 hours of refusing to visit his mother during a cardiac emergency. You need to know who I was before my carefully maintained image, as a simple retired widow living in a modest Evanston apartment, concealed the investment expertise and financial authority that had elevated me from junior portfolio analyst in 1972 to chief investment officer at one of Chicago's most prestigious wealth management firms. The comfortable two-bedroom apartment in Evanston where I had lived for 12 years, located in a well-maintained but unremarkable building on Hinman Avenue just 6 blocks from Northwestern University, appeared to casual observers as the simple retirement home of a former financial professional living on a modest pension and Social Security. The traditional furniture that I had selected from Ethan Allen's classic collection, family photographs from Michael's childhood, arranged on end tables and bookshelves, and understated decor in muted blues and beiges, suggested limited financial resources and the kind of reduced lifestyle that many adult children expect from elderly parents who have transitioned from professional careers to fixed-income retirement. Michael and his wife Amanda visited perhaps 4 times annually during obligatory holiday gatherings, Thanksgiving dinner that Amanda would reluctantly agree to host, a brief Christmas Eve stop before heading to her parents' house in Wilmette, Easter brunch if their schedules permitted, and occasionally my birthday in July, if they didn't have conflicts with their Lake Geneva vacation plans. During these visits, They would sit politely in my modest living room, making conversation about Michael's business developments and the girls' school activity, while Amanda's eyes would periodically scan the simple furnishings with what I recognized as a mixture of sympathy and relief that they wouldn't need to worry about supporting an elderly relative who clearly lived within her means. The kitchen where I served them coffee and homemade cookies featured standard appliances from Sears that were perhaps 15 years old, a small dining table with 4 chairs that had served me well since my husband Richard's death 18 years earlier, and the kind of practical dishware and simple linens that suggested someone who had learned to live comfortably but frugally during their retirement years. My bedroom contained a modest queen-size bed with a traditional oak dresser, family photos from happier times when Richard and I had traveled together, and a small television that I used to watch the evening news and occasional programming on PBS. But what my family never understood during all those years of treating me like a simple retiree who needed help understanding modern investment apps and online banking was that their comfortable assumption about my limited financial sophistication revealed their complete ignorance of the private wealth empire I had built throughout the Chicago investment community, an empire that operated so seamlessly and efficiently that its very invisibility had become its greatest strength and my family's most dangerous vulnerability when it came to their financial expectations and inheritance assumptions. The modest apartment where Michael assumed I lived on a tight budget actually served as the primary coordination center for Hartwell Investment Holdings, my private wealth management firm that I had established during the final years of my tenure at Meridian Capital Management. The innocuous second bedroom that appeared to be a simple guest room and home office actually contained institutional-grade financial management systems worth over $340,000, secure fiber optic connections to private banking networks providing real-time access to global markets, and wealth management infrastructure that maintained 24/7 connectivity with investment institutions throughout North America and enabled immediate response to market opportunities that could affect millions of dollars in family trust assets and private investment coordination activities across multiple time zones and financial jurisdictions. My living room, which appeared to Michael and Amanda as a simple retirement space with comfortable seating and family memento, contained sophisticated wealth management database systems concealed within custom cabinetry and private banking hardware that provided direct access to the primary servers at Meridian Capital Management, backup communication protocols for emergency wealth coordination during market volatility, and secure connections to federal financial databases that required the highest levels of security clearance and professional authentication to access and maintain throughout the private investment community and international wealth management network. For 46 extraordinary years I had been more than just Eleanor Sinclair, the dedicated mother and financial professional that my family occasionally acknowledged during holiday conversation, whose doctoral dissertation on intergenerational wealth transfer strategies had become the foundation for trust structures used by 73 of Chicago's most prominent families, whose emergency wealth preservation protocols had protected over $890 million in family assets during the 2008 financial crisis, and whose private investment firm Sinclair Family Capital maintained assets under management exceeding $347 million, that enabled immediate response to investment opportunities and family financial emergencies throughout the regional wealth management community. My career had begun in 1972 as a junior portfolio analyst at Continental Bank, where I started with a salary of $8,400 annually and responsibility for tracking municipal bond portfolios for middle-income clients. The financial industry in 1972 was vastly different from today's sophisticated electronic trading platforms and complex derivative instruments. We maintained client records on physical index cards, calculated portfolio returns using mechanical adding machines, and communicated with other institutions through telephone calls and typed correspondence that often took days to coordinate across different time zones and regulatory jurisdictions. But even as a junior analyst, I had demonstrated an unusual aptitude for identifying undervalued securities and understanding the complex interplay between economic indicators, political developments, and market psychology that determined investment success or failure during the volatile. My ability to analyze municipal bond creditworthiness and predict interest rate movements had earned recognition from senior management and led to my advancement to associate portfolio manager within 18 months, a progression that was virtually unprecedented for women in the financial industry during that era of limited professional opportunities and systematic gender discrimination. By 1978, I had been promoted to senior portfolio manager at Harris Bank, where I managed investment accounts for high net worth individuals and small institutional clients, with combined assets exceeding $4 billion. My investment philosophy emphasized careful risk assessment, diversified asset allocation, and long-term wealth preservation strategies that protected client assets during market downturns, while positioning portfolios to capture gains during economic expansion periods. The success of my investment approach had attracted attention from wealth management professionals throughout the Chicago financial community and led to consulting opportunities with family offices and private banks that served the city's most affluent residents. The 1980s had brought explosive growth in the financial services industry, with new investment products, deregulation of banking activities, and the emergence of sophisticated institutional investment strategies that required advanced mathematical modeling and computer-based analysis. I had embraced these technological advances while maintaining my focus on fundamental investment principles, earning my Chartered Financial Analyst designation in 1983, and completing my doctoral studies in finance at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, where my research on family wealth transfer strategies had influenced academic thinking about intergenerational financial planning and estate optimization technique. My transition to Meridian Capital Management in 1989 as Vice President of Private Client Services had marked the beginning of my most significant professional achievement. Meridian was one of Chicago's most prestigious wealth management firms, serving ultra-high net worth families, with investment assets exceeding $50 million and requiring as sophisticated tax planning, estate structuring, and multi-generational wealth coordination. My responsibilities included overseeing investment strategies for 34 client families, coordinating with trust attorneys and tax specialists to optimize estate planning structures, and developing innovative investment approaches that balanced growth objectives with wealth preservation requirements throughout changing market conditions and evolving regulatory environment. The scope of my financial responsibilities had grown to encompass managing comprehensive investment portfolios for 89 families across 6 Midwestern states, coordinating with federal financial authorities who required accurate documentation for regulatory compliance and wealth monitoring protocols, implementing sophisticated trust systems that balanced individual family needs with institutional accountability requirements, designing inheritance structures that synchronized seamlessly between private wealth management, federal agencies, and regional investment firms, and troubleshoot complex estate complications that could affect everything from individual family financial security to multi-generational wealth preservation that influenced regional investment markets and family financial stability throughout the Chicago financial community and beyond into national management networks. During my 4 decades of distinguished investment service, I had personally overseen wealth coordination for over $12.4 billion in family investment projects throughout the Midwest and Great Lakes region, supervised direct coordination between 78 different financial institutions across 7 states, collaborated extensively with federal financial officials who required accurate regional data for compliance analysis and regulatory oversight, and managed emergency wealth preservation protocols during market volatility that required immediate coordination between banking institutions, regulatory agencies, and private investment firms to ensure family financial stability while maintaining institutional integrity and privacy protections throughout the most challenging market periods in modern American financial history. The transformation that I had witnessed and managed during my career was extraordinary, from manual portfolio documentation systems stored in traditional filing cabinets to sophisticated encrypted digital platforms that could instantly verify investment eligibility, wealth status, financial histories, and inheritance planning across institutional networks. that connected individual family wealth management to national investment systems operating throughout the United States, Canada, and selected international financial markets that required complex regulatory coordination and cross-border compliance protocols. Michael David Sinclair presented himself to his professional colleagues and Lincoln Park neighbors as a self-made Chicago success story, the ambitious son of a retired financial advisor who had earned his way into tech entrepreneurship through superior business instincts and strategic networking that demonstrated his commitment to innovation, excellence, and startup leadership. His carefully constructed narrative of individual achievement and personal wealth creation reflected the kind of bootstrap mythology that resonated with his venture capital partners and tech community peers, who admired his apparent financial independence and business growth that seemed to demonstrate the American dream of wealth creation, hard work, and entrepreneurial vision. The story that Michael told about his business development journey emphasized his professional achievements at Innovate Tech Solutions, where he had advanced from startup founder to successful CEO, while maintaining consistently impressive growth metrics and contributing to Chicago's tech excellence through innovative software solutions and client service that distinguished his company from competitors throughout the Illinois technology sector. His Series A funding success had been celebrated by colleagues and investors as evidence of his exceptional business acumen and dedication to technological innovation that demonstrated his commitment to market leadership and financial responsibility. Innovate Tech Solutions, the cloud-based data analytics platform that Michael had founded in served mid-market companies seeking to optimize their customer relationship management and sales forecasting capability. The company's software suite integrated with existing business systems to provide real-time analytics, predictive modeling, and automated reporting that helped clients improve revenue performance and operational efficiency. Michael's technical background in computer science from Illinois Institute of Technology, combined with his MBA from Northwestern Kellogg School of Management, had provided the foundation for understanding both the technological and business aspects of software development in the rapidly evolving enterprise technology market. The $2.3 million Series A funding round that Michael had closed in 2021 had enabled Innovate Tech Solutions to expand from 8 employees to its current team of 47 professionals, including software developers, data scientists, sales representatives, and customer success managers, who served over 180 client companies throughout the Midwest and expanding into East Coast market. The funding had come from Lakeshore Ventures, a Chicago-based venture capital firm that specialized in early-stage technology companies with scalable business models and experienced management teams capable of building sustainable competitive advantages in growing market segments. Michael's leadership of Innovate Tech Solutions had earned recognition from Chicago business publications, including selection as one of Crain's Chicago Business 40 Under 40 in 2022, and inclusion in the Chicago Tribune's annual list of top tech entrepreneurs to watch, based on his company's revenue growth and market expansion achievement. The professional accolades had enhanced his reputation within Chicago's startup ecosystem and positioned him as a thought leader in enterprise software development, leading to speaking opportunities at technology conferences and consulting engagements with other entrepreneurs seeking guidance about scaling their businesses. But what Michael's carefully curated success narrative completely omitted was any acknowledgement of the financial support system that had made his entrepreneurial achievements possible throughout his adult life, the private investment backing that had covered Bella Belladin Debay program through favorable family trust distributions that he assumed were standard educational benefits, the strategic business planning consultation that had enabled him to develop his initial business plan and financial projections, despite having limited entrepreneurial experience, and the emergency financial assistance that had provided stability during unexpected business expenses and market fluctuations, all remained invisible in his personal story of individual achievement and business financial responsibility that he shared with investors and tech community leaders. The comfortable lifestyle that Michael maintained in his Lincoln Park neighborhood reflected financial freedom that distinguished him from his tech peers, who struggled with startup debt exceeding $400 worked additional consulting projects to supplement their business income, and managed tight household budgets to afford Chicago urban living expenses that continued increasing due to property taxes and operational costs. Michael's ability to maintain premium home improvements, pursue expensive family activities and luxury purchase, and invest in lifestyle enhancements without financial pressure created a comfortable buffer that enabled him to excel professionally, while his colleagues balanced career demands with economic constraints that limited their family activities and business investment capability. The Lincoln Park townhouse, where Michael lived with Amanda and their 8-year-old twin daughters, Sophia and Isabella, had been purchased in 2019 for $1.2 million through what appeared to be conventional mortgage financing, but actually involved complex family trust coordination that had provided down payment assistance and favorable lending terms that reduced their monthly housing costs by over $800 compared to market rate. The 3-story, 3,400-square-foot home featured original hardwood floors, updated kitchen with professional-grade appliances, master suite with walk-in closets and spa bathroom, and a landscaped rear garden that provided private outdoor space in one of Chicago's most desirable neighborhoods. Michael's vehicle collection, a 2022 Tesla Model S for daily commuting, Amanda's 2021 BMW X5 for family transportation, and a 2020 Porsche Storos in automotive assets that most startup founders couldn't afford without compromising their business investment capabilities or accumulating personal debt that could affect their company's financial stability and growth potential. The family's annual expense, including private school tuition for the twins at $34,000 annually, family vacations to destinations like Aspen and Martha's Vineyard, and membership in the Chicago Athletic Association, created financial obligations that exceeded $180,000 annually, beyond their basic living expenses. Little did Michael know that every advantage he considered evidence of his superior business capabilities, the seamless venture capital access that had been facilitated through private introduction, the emergency financial support during unexpected market downturns that had prevented cash flow crises, the family trust distributions that had enabled his comfortable lifestyle throughout his business development period, all depended on the continued goodwill and financial coordination of the very woman he was about to abandon during her moment of greatest medical need and family vulnerability. What my family never understood during all those years of treating me like a simple retired financial advisor who needed help with basic smartphone features and online banking apps was that their comfortable assumption about my limited technological capabilities revealed their complete ignorance of the institutional wealth management empire I had built throughout the Chicago financial community, an empire that operated so seamlessly and efficiently that its very invisibility had become its greatest strength and my family's most dangerous vulnerability when it came to their continued financial security and inheritance expectations. The modest Evanston apartment where I had lived for 12 years, which Michael and Amanda considered evidence of my limited financial success and outdated lifestyle choices, actually served as the primary coordination center for the Midwest Regional Wealth Management Network, equipped with quantum encrypted communication systems worth over $890,000, dedicated fiber optic internet connections, providing 50 gigabit symmetrical speeds, and institutional wealth management infrastructure that maintained 24/7 connectivity with investment institutions throughout 34 states, and enabled immediate response to market emergencies that could affect billions of dollars in family wealth and institutional investment coordination activities across multiple time zones, regulatory jurisdictions. My living room, which appeared to casual visitors as a simple retirement space, with traditional furniture, family photographs from Michael's childhood, and modest decorative elements that suggested limited financial resources, contained sophisticated wealth management database systems and institutional investment hardware that provided direct access to the primary servers at Meridian Capital Management, backup communication protocols for emergency wealth coordination during market volatility, and secure connections to federal financial databases that required the highest levels of security clearance and professional authentication to access and maintain
throughout the global investment community and international wealth management coordination network. The technology setup that I had installed throughout my apartment represented over $2.4 million in specialized equipment and software licensing that enabled me to coordinate institutional investment activities across 12 Midwestern states, respond to family wealth emergencies within minutes, rather than the typical days or weeks required through traditional investment management channels, and maintain the private wealth infrastructure that supported dozens of Chicago families' most important financial management goals throughout Cook County, DuPage County, and selected premium residential areas in Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, and Iowa. The multiple holographic displays that lined my home office walls showed real-time status information from investment databases across 34 states, automated alert systems that notified me of regulatory changes or compliance issues requiring immediate attention, and coordination interfaces that allowed me to communicate instantly with investment professionals, federal financial officials, and wealth administrators throughout the regional investment network. But beyond the physical infrastructure that supported my institutional wealth coordination responsibility, what made my home-based operations particularly powerful was the comprehensive network of professional relationships and federal coordination protocols that I had developed throughout my 46-year career in investment management and institutional wealth administration. The daily video conferences that my family occasionally overheard during their visits weren't social conversations with retired colleagues discussing grandchildren and retirement activities. They were strategic consultations with federal financial administrators about regional investment policy, crisis coordination with regulatory development officials during market emergencies, and technical support for investment institutions that processed billions of dollars in daily wealth distribution throughout North America and selected international markets. The Hartwell Institute for Investment Excellence, which I had established during the final years of my career at Meridian Capital Management, had become the most respected private wealth training program in the Midwest, providing advanced education for institutional investment coordinators, federal compliance officials, and private wealth professionals who needed expertise in multi-institution investment integration, regulatory protocol implementation, and crisis response coordination that maintained family wealth stability during market emergencies and institutional investment complications that could affect thousands of families simultaneously across multiple states and investment jurisdictions. Our institute accepted only 12 participants annually through an application process more competitive than federal financial agency positions, requiring extensive experience in investment management, institutional wealth administration, or family financial coordination before candidates qualified for consideration. Through our rigorous screening process, the program 1000 reflected both the specialized nature of our training and the career advancement opportunities that graduation provided for investment professionals seeking leadership positions in federal agencies, institutional wealth administration, or private investment organizations throughout the Midwest and the broader central United States investment region. The waiting list for admission to the Hartwell Institute extended over 5 years, with applications from senior investment professionals at major wealth management firms throughout Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, and Indianapolis, federal financial officials seeking advanced institutional investment training that wasn't available through traditional government education programs, and wealth administrators responsible for regulatory coordination and compliance oversight throughout multiple international jurisdictions and cross-border investment initiatives. We regularly declined applications from Wall Street investment executives who lacked the specialized knowledge of family wealth systems and federal regulatory compliance that distinguished our program from general investment education and basic wealth management training that focused on profit maximization rather than multi-generational financial stability. What made our program unique wasn't just the technical training quality, it was the federal coordination experience and professional networking opportunities that came with graduation from the most respected institutional investment program in North American wealth administration. Hartwell Institute graduates received automatic consideration for federal financial positions that never advertised openings publicly, gained access to our network of private investment professionals and federal regulatory officials throughout the Midwest and beyond, and could leverage our consultation services to build careers in institutional wealth management that would be impossible to achieve through traditional university education, and standard investment advancement that didn't include the sophisticated regulatory knowledge and federal coordination expertise that our program provided.
The advanced curriculum that we provided included hands-on training in federal financial integration protocols that synchronized local investment management with national wealth policy, emergency response coordination during private investment market crises that could affect thousands of families, multi-institution investment coordination that enabled seamless wealth transitions across state boundaries, family financial database management that protected privacy while maintaining regulatory compliance, and compliance implementation that protected family investment rights while maintaining wealth access and federal monitoring capabilities that balanced individual rights with community financial stability requirements. Our graduates managed private financial databases for federal agencies throughout the Midwest, coordinated institutional investment operations for major metropolitan areas including Chicago, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, and Minneapolis, and supervised wealth coordination operations for institutions that handled trillions of dollars in annual family investment assets throughout the central United States, and selected international investment markets that required sophisticated regulatory coordination and federal compliance oversight. But perhaps the most significant aspect of the Hartwell Institute was our role in developing and implementing the next generation of private investment protocols that would determine how institutional wealth was managed, secured, and coordinated between private investment organizations and federal financial databases throughout the 21st century. The graduates from our program were leading technical innovation at organizations like the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the Treasury Department's Office of Investment Security, and major institutional wealth systems, implementing compliance protocols for federal agencies, and coordinating private investment management for state financial systems throughout the United States, and selected international wealth programs that required sophisticated regulatory coordination. The professional relationships that had developed through our institute included direct connections with senior executives at every major investment firm throughout the Midwest, federal financial officials responsible for regional institutional wealth coordination throughout the central United States, and private investment professionals who managed financial systems for federal governments, regulatory agencies, and institutional investment departments throughout North America, Europe, and selected emerging market investment programs that required advanced regulatory coordination and federal compliance oversight capabilities. My daily routine, which my family observed during their infrequent visits, and considered evidence of simple retirement activities and limited social engagement, typical of elderly widows living on fixed income, actually included coordinating institutional investment operations that affected over 6.2 million private financial records throughout the Midwest and the broader central region, supervising emergency response protocols for market failures that could disrupt family wealth throughout multiple states and international investment markets, and providing technical consultation for federal officials who relied on accurate regional data for regulatory analysis and private investment allocation coordination that influenced national financial policy development. The morning schedule that began each day at 4:30 a.m. included reviewing overnight system alerts from investment databases across 34 states, analyzing automated error reports that identified potential compliance issues or wealth coordination integrity problems requiring immediate attention, coordinating with federal financial databases that synchronized with our regional systems during off-peak hours to maintain optimal performance, and implementing system updates that maintained compliance protocols and improved database performance for millions of family investment records and institutional wealth transactions that processed continuously throughout the central investment network. The afternoon coordination activities included supervising wealth integration between private investment exchanges and federal agencies throughout the Midwest, troubleshooting system errors that affected institutional investment allocation visibility and family financial application processing that could delay wealth assistance for families in need, coordinating with federal officials who needed accurate regional data for policy analysis, and private investment coordination that influenced national financial development initiatives, and managing crisis response protocols during market volatility that required immediate coordination between multiple federal agencies and private institutional investment organizations throughout the regional financial network. The evening consultation work included providing technical guidance for private investment professionals who encountered financial errors or system integration problems that could affect family wealth access, coordinating with international firms that implemented our protocols for institutional investment management systems in other countries throughout Europe and Asia-Pacific region, and conducting strategic planning with federal officials who relied on our expertise for national financial database, modernization, and compliance enhancement initiatives that would improve wealth access and regulatory efficiency throughout the United States and selected international markets. But beyond the technical coordination responsibilities that occupied most of my daily schedule throughout the week, what made my institutional investment expertise particularly valuable was my comprehensive understanding of how private wealth systems affected individual families and communities throughout the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, and selected areas of the southeastern United States, where our coordination protocols had been implemented successfully. Every family who received timely private financial distributions, every investor who operated efficiently within regulatory framework, every wealth grant that reached appropriate recipients, and every emergency financial response that coordinated effectively represented the successful implementation of systems and protocols that I had spent decades developing, refining, and maintaining through continuous professional development and regulatory coordination. The Meridian Capital Management, where I had spent my entire career, wasn't just a regional institutional investment contractor, it was the exclusive provider of coordination services for the Federal Reserve's Midwest Regional Integration Network, coordinating family institutional wealth funding for over 2,100 federal financial jurisdictions, 18 major metropolitan financial areas, and managing investment integration with 34 independent private wealth exchanges across 15 states throughout the Central and Great Lakes region. Our systems processed over $28.7 billion in annual institutional investment transactions, coordinated family wealth development for over 1,440 different firms and financial organizations, and maintained the infrastructure that enabled platforms like Federal Financial Administration, private family investment trusts, and institutional wealth networks to provide effective private financial management and family investment coordination for thousands of Midwest and Great Lakes families seeking stable wealth solutions. The scope of our institutional investment management operations required coordination with the Treasury Department for private financial compliance and audit support throughout the regional network, the Federal Reserve for institutional investment program integration that ensured seamless coordination between federal and private financial initiatives, the Internal Revenue Service for family investment program compliance verification that protected both individual privacy rights and federal oversight requirements, the Securities and Exchange Commission for Wealth Coordination and Regulatory Oversight that maintained market stability, and the Department of Homeland Security for Family Financial Verification and Security Monitoring that supported both individual privacy protection and national security requirements throughout the regional investment network. My security clearance level required annual background investigations conducted by federal security agencies, comprehensive financial audits that verified the integrity of my investment management operation, psychological evaluations that confirmed my continued reliability and professional competence, and professional competency assessments that ensured only the most qualified and trustworthy institutional investment professionals maintained access to systems that could affect national financial programs, regional family stability, and federal private investment policy development that influenced wealth access for millions of American families throughout multiple states and jurisdictions. The clearance process included polygraph examinations conducted by federal security professionals, extensive interviews with professional colleagues and federal officials who could verify my character and professional competence, and continuous monitoring that verified my continued reliability and commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professional integrity and system security throughout my ongoing coordination responsibility. The technical innovations that I had developed during my career included automated integration protocols that synchronized private investment data between institutional wealth databases and federal financial systems throughout the regional network, compliance algorithms that protected family privacy while maintaining institutional investment accessibility and regulatory oversight, error detection systems that identified financial irregularities before they affected family investment access or wealth stability, and crisis response protocols that maintained system stability during equipment failures or cybersecurity incidents that could affect millions of family investment records and trillions of dollars in institutional wealth activity. These innovations had been adopted by investment firms throughout the Midwest and the broader Central region, implemented by federal agencies for National Financial Database Modernization Initiative, and licensed to international institutional investment organizations that wanted to implement similar integration systems and compliance protocols for family wealth management in European Union countries, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, and Pacific Rim nations, seeking to modernize their financial systems and improve coordination between government agencies and private institutional investment organizations that served millions of families seeking stable wealth solutions. The consulting contracts that I had negotiated with federal agencies included ongoing technical support for financial database modernization projects that would improve efficiency and reduce costs, emergency response coordination during system failures that affected multiple states and could disrupt wealth access for thousands of families, compliance assessment and enhancement for federal private investment databases that ensured regulatory requirements were met while protecting individual privacy rights, and strategic planning for next-generation institutional investment technology that would improve system integration and reduce wealth management costs, while maintaining accuracy and security standards that protected both individual family privacy and federal financial monitoring capabilities throughout the national investment network. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my institutional investment administration authority was my role in determining which families received priority processing and optimal financial visibility throughout the Midwest Regional Family Private Investment Network that served thousands of families seeking stable wealth solutions. The integration protocols that I had designed included automated quality assessment algorithms that evaluated institutional investment applications for appropriateness and completeness, determined financial positioning based on family need and character status, that balanced individual requirements with community wealth stability, and implemented enhanced allocation protocols for families who met the highest standards for community impact and character potential that contributed to neighborhood stability and investment value maintenance. This meant that families associated with my personal relatives had always received the most favorable institutional investment treatment possible throughout their financial experience, priority processing for wealth coordination that reduced waiting times from months to days, enhanced distribution visibility that attracted maximum financial benefit and optimal lending terms, expedited application coordination that reduced approval timeframes and eliminated common administrative delays, and automated compliance verification that prevented administrative problems from affecting their private investment access or wealth status throughout their financial management experience. The seamless financial experiences that Michael and Amanda had always enjoyed weren't natural consequences of tech business excellence or superior financial management. They were the direct result of institutional investment preferences and technical advantages that I had been providing through my coordination authority and system access throughout their entire wealth building and business development experience. Michael's comfortable life in his Lincoln Park townhouse had benefited from perfect institutional investment services coordination that ensured optimal financing terms,
seamless private financial processing that eliminated common delays and complications, and enhanced investment allocation that attracted maximum financial support and regulatory advantage, because I had personally implemented distribution protocols that ensured optimal wealth visibility and financial accuracy throughout his investment experience. The smooth regulatory approval processes that had helped him during his transition from employee status to business ownership had benefited from expedited verification and automated compliance checking that reduced approval timeframes and prevented common administrative delays that affected most institutional investment applications throughout the Illinois financial market. The comprehensive private investment services that enabled his Chicago suburban lifestyle reflected wealth coordination that I had maintained between institutional investment systems and federal financial databases, preventing the service gaps and administrative complications that could have significantly affected his access to wealth development and investment support throughout his business ownership experience. The excellent investment rates that supported his lifestyle maintenance, the emergency institutional investment programs that provided additional support during business fluctuations, and a private financial infrastructure that supported his family wealth building all depended on institutional investment coordination and wealth management that required exactly the kind of technical expertise and federal coordination that I had been providing throughout my entire career at Meridian Capital Management. The venture capital funding that had enabled Michael's business expansion, the favorable lending terms that had made his Lincoln Park townhouse purchase possible, the emergency financial support that had appeared during unexpected business challenges, and the seamless wealth coordination that had supported his family's comfortable lifestyle, all represented the invisible operation of systems and relationships that I controlled and coordinated through my institutional investment authority and federal financial coordination capability. Michael David Sinclair presented himself to his professional colleagues and Lincoln Park neighbors as a self-made entrepreneur, whose success was entirely attributable to his business acumen and technological innovation, but the reality was that every significant financial milestone in his adult life had been facilitated by the comprehensive wealth management infrastructure that I had built and maintained throughout my distinguished career in institutional investment coordination and federal financial and the $2.3 million Series A funding that Michael had received from Lakeshore Ventures hadn't been the result of a standard venture capital selection process. It had been facilitated through private introductions that I had arranged through my professional network, due diligence support that had been coordinated through institutional investment channel, and regulatory compliance assistance that had expedited the funding approval process through federal financial coordination protocols that were invisible to both Michael and the venture capital firm, but essential for completing the transaction efficiently and successfully. The Lincoln Park townhouse that Michael and Amanda had purchased in 2019 had been financed through what appeared to be conventional mortgage processes, but actually involved complex coordination between institutional investment systems, family trust distribution, and regulatory compliance protocols that had reduced their borrowing costs by over $340,000 throughout the life of their mortgage, while providing financial stability and investment flexibility that distinguished their home ownership experience from typical real estate financing that required extensive documentation and created ongoing financial obligations that could affect business development capabilities. The private school tuition for Sophia and Isabella, the family vacations to premium destinations, the luxury vehicle purchases, and the membership in exclusive social organizations all reflected financial freedom that was built on invisible institutional investment support and wealth coordination that operated seamlessly in the background of their comfortable assumptions about their earned prosperity and financial independence through Michael's business success and financial management capabilities. Even Amanda's ability to focus on family management and community involvement, rather than working outside the home to supplement their household income, reflected the financial security that came from institutional investment coordination and wealth management support that ensured their family's financial stability and lifestyle maintenance, without requiring dual income strategies that many families with similar business ownership situations needed to maintain their desired standard of living and investment goals throughout challenging economic period and market fluctuations. The irony of being dismissed as a sick old woman whose elderly health drama was too inconvenient for Michael's career development schedule by the family members whose comfortable lifestyle depended entirely on the wealth coordination and institutional investment support that I had been orchestrating and protecting throughout their entire financial experience was not lost on me during those critical hours in the cardiac intensive care unit. The systematic dismissal that I had experienced during family gatherings and holiday celebrations over the past several years represented exactly the kind of character evidence that justified implementing comprehensive wealth review protocols and trust eligibility reconsideration that could transform their comfortable assumptions about inheritance and financial security into accountability assessment and character valuation requirements that would fundamentally alter their assumptions about family loyalty obligations and the true meaning of respecting elderly relatives, whose expertise and generosity had created every opportunity for authentic financial success and family prosperity. The network of professional relationships and institutional connections that I had cultivated throughout my 46-year career in investment management and wealth coordination represented the most comprehensive financial infrastructure ever assembled by a single investment professional in the Midwest, spanning governmental regulatory bodies, international wealth institutions, federal financial development organizations, and emerging market investment agencies across 5 continents, creating a web of influence and authority that could instantly affect the financial stability of thousands of families while remaining completely invisible to beneficiaries who assumed their comfortable suburban lifestyles were the result of individual achievement, rather than sophisticated institutional wealth infrastructure that operated seamlessly throughout multiple states and international investment networks. My direct communication protocols with the Department of Treasury's Regional Investment Oversight Division included daily coordination meetings at 5 weekly strategic planning sessions for national private wealth policy development that influenced financial regulations throughout the Midwest, and emergency response authorization that enabled me to implement immediate protective measures during market volatility that could affect the wealth security of over 3.8 million American families, whose private investment portfolios depended on the stability and coordination that my technical expertise provided through advanced institutional wealth integration and federal compliance management systems throughout the central United States and selected international investment markets. The secure communication channels that connected my Evanston Operations Center to the Federal Reserve's Office of Investment Policy operated through military-grade encrypted satellite networks that processed over 1.2 million individual private wealth transactions daily, coordinating finance distribution between family investment systems and federal oversight networks, while maintaining the privacy protections and security protocols that distinguished legitimate institutional wealth management from speculative investment activities that could destabilize regional financial markets, compromise national economic security interests throughout the broader investment community. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my federal coordination responsibilities was my role as the primary civilian consultant for the Department of Homeland Security's Financial Intelligence Unit, providing technical expertise for private wealth tracking systems that identified potential money laundering activities through investment transactions, terrorist financing operations that utilized financial investments, and international fraud schemes that threatened both individual family wealth security and national investment stability through sophisticated institutional financial analysis and pattern recognition algorithms that I had personally developed during my tenure at Meridian Capital Management and refined through decades of federal coordination experience. The international coordination protocols that I maintained with private investment regulatory agencies in 47 countries required daily communication with wealth oversight officials in London, Frankfurt, Toronto, Sydney, Dublin, Zurich, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Singapore, and emerging market capitals throughout Latin America, Eastern Europe and Asia-Pacific regions, ensuring that the institutional wealth movements, coordinated through my family investment network, remained compliant with international financial regulations and anti-money laundering requirements, protected both individual beneficiary privacy and cross-border investment transparency obligations throughout the global wealth management community. My position as a founding member of the Global Investment Coordination Council provided direct access to policy development discussions with financial officials from the European Central Banking Authority, Investment Bank of Canada, Swiss National Financial and United Kingdom Treasury Investment Authority, Australian Securities and Investment Commission, and investment authorities throughout the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation region, enabling me to anticipate regulatory changes that could affect family wealth planning and implement protective strategies that maintained beneficiary financial security during periods of international policy adjustment and market uncertainty that could disrupt investment values and wealth accessibility. The technical specifications that I had contributed to the International Monetary Fund's investment integration framework had been adopted by over 1330 the World Nation and Family Financial Coordination, establishing compliance protocols, balanced individual investment rights with governmental oversight responsibilities, while creating the infrastructure foundation that enabled legitimate family institutional wealth management to operate efficiently across international borders and regulatory jurisdictions throughout the global investment community. The private consulting contracts that I maintained with major global investment institutions, including BlackRock Private Wealth Division, Vanguard Global Investment Services, Fidelity, International Wealth Management, State Street Global Advisors, and Rowe Price International Investment Services, provided ongoing technical support for security enhancement projects, regulatory compliance optimization, and family investment coordination systems that processed over $106 billion in monthly institutional wealth transactions, while maintaining accuracy and transparency standards required by federal oversight agencies and international regulatory coordination protocols throughout the global investment network. My advisory role with the Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Investment Market Management included quarterly briefings on private wealth market trends that influenced national financial policy, monthly reports on family investment coordination patterns that identified potential market manipulation, and immediate notification protocols for any institutional wealth irregularities that could indicate market manipulation, insider trading activities and investment development, or coordinated schemes that threatened the integrity of private investment markets and the wealth security of individual investors and family investment beneficiaries throughout the United States and international wealth network. The institutional wealth infrastructure projects that I had supervised for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation included developing emergency response protocols for private investment institution failures that could affect thousands of family, creating investment insurance frameworks for family wealth institutions that protected individual investments, and establishing coordination systems that protected family investment assets during financial institution crises, while maintaining the stability and confidence that distinguish legitimate institutional wealth management from speculative investment platforms that posed systemic risks to the broader financial system throughout regional and national investment. But beyond the governmental and regulatory coordination that occupied significant portions of my professional responsibility throughout the week, the private sector relationships that I had developed throughout the institutional wealth industry provided unparalleled access to market intelligence, technological innovation, and strategic partnerships that enabled me to optimize family investment management in ways that exceeded what traditional wealth advisors could achieve through conventional investment approaches and standard financial management techniques that lacked sophisticated federal coordination and institutional access. My position on the board of directors for the National Investment Management Association, the leading institutional wealth industry advocacy organization, representing over 200, provided direct access to policy development discussions, regulatory strategy, coordination, and technological advancement planning that influenced the future direction of private wealth markets and the competitive landscape that determined which investment opportunities provided optimal return for family wealth development and long-term financial security planning throughout the national investment network. The venture capital partnerships that I had established with leading institutional investment firms, including KKR Private Investment Solutions, Apollo Global Wealth Management, Carlyle Private Investment Development, Bridgewater Investment Associates, and Citadel Investment Group, created exclusive access to early-stage private investment projects and to institutional wealth technology investments that provided family investment beneficiaries with opportunities to participate in wealth development before these investments became available to general market participants, ensuring that qualified families maintained competitive advantages in investment accumulation and financial independence achievement throughout the regional investment community.
These academic collaborations included guest lectures at executive education programs for investment professionals, research publications in peer-reviewed private wealth journals that influenced industry best practices, and participation in international conferences that brought together the world's leading institutional wealth technologists, regulatory officials, and private investment investors, creating networking opportunities and knowledge exchange that enhanced my ability to provide family investment beneficiaries with the most sophisticated institutional wealth management and strategic investment planning available in the global private investment market throughout multiple jurisdictions and international networks. The technology companies that had implemented my institutional wealth coordination protocols included major cloud computing providers, cybersecurity firms specializing in investment data protection, and wealth software developers whose systems process the majority of private investment transactions worldwide, ensuring that the technical infrastructure supporting family investment coordination remained at the forefront of technological innovation, while maintaining the security standards, compliance protocols required for legitimate institutional wealth management, and federal regulatory approval throughout the global investment community. My patents for private investment security algorithms, institutional wealth integration protocol, and family financial coordination systems had been licensed by over 520 technology companies worldwide, generating royalty income that exceeded $4.7 million annually while establishing technical standards that influenced the development of institutional wealth infrastructure throughout the global private investment industry, and created additional revenue streams that enhanced the overall financial strength of family investment operations and beneficiary support capabilities throughout the regional investment network. The Hartwell Foundation for Financial Education, which I had established with a $34 million endowment drawn from my investment consultation income, provided scholarships for promising students pursuing institutional wealth studies, research grants for private investment security development, and public education programs that promoted financial literacy among elderly populations who had been excluded from technological advancement due to age discrimination and inadequate educational resources that failed to address the unique learning needs and security concerns of senior citizens interested in private investment management, institutional wealth coordination throughout their retirement planning. The Foundation's annual conference, the International Symposium on Family Investment Coordination, attracted over 2,100 participants from governmental agencies, academic institutions, and private sector organizations throughout North America and selected international investment markets, creating the premier forum for discussing the intersection of institutional wealth technology, family investment planning, and regulatory compliance that shaped industry best practices and influenced policy development at both national and international levels of governmental and private sector investment coordination throughout the global wealth management community. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my professional network was the informal coordination system that I had developed with other family investment managers and institutional wealth professionals who specialized in multi-generational private investment plans, creating a confidential consultation network that enabled immediate response to beneficiary emergencies, character assessment challenges, and family crisis situations that required sophisticated intervention and coordinated support from multiple professionals with expertise in both institutional wealth management and family relationship dynamics throughout complex investment ownership situations. This informal network included former colleagues from Meridian Capital Management, who now managed institutional wealth operations for other major investment institutions throughout the Midwest, regulatory officials who had transitioned to private sector consulting roles after distinguished federal careers, and private investment entrepreneurs who had successfully built institutional wealth companies and understood both the technical requirements and family relationship challenges associated with managing significant private investment portfolios across multiple generations of beneficiaries with varying levels of technological sophistication and character development throughout their investment ownership experience. The monthly coordination meetings that this network conducted through secure video conferencing systems provided opportunities to discuss challenging beneficiary situations that required careful character assessment, share successful intervention strategies that had resolved family investment conflicts, and coordinate responses to family emergencies that required immediate wealth support combined with character accountability measures that distinguished temporary assistance from long-term dependent relationships that could undermine beneficiary development and family respect obligations throughout the investment ownership and family relationship management experience. My role as the unofficial coordinator for this network reflected both my technical expertise in institutional wealth management and my successful track record in managing difficult family situations where beneficiaries had developed entitlement attitudes or demonstrated systematic disrespect for elderly relatives whose investment coordination made their comfortable lifestyles possible, providing other professionals with proven strategies for implementing accountability measures while maintaining family relationships and achieving positive character development outcomes throughout challenging investment ownership and family relationship situations. The case studies that I had documented and shared with this professional network included detailed analysis of intervention techniques that balanced investment access with character accountability, character assessment protocols that measured family respect alongside professional achievement, and family healing processes that had successfully transformed entitled beneficiaries into respectful family members who understood both the value of elderly wisdom and their responsibilities as recipients of institutional wealth, creating a knowledge base that enhanced the effectiveness of family investment coordination throughout the private wealth professional community. These intervention strategies had been successfully implemented by network members in over 270 different family situations throughout the Midwest and the broader Central region, ranging from minor disrespect issues that required educational intervention to systematic elderly abuse cases, required comprehensive investment coordination, suspension and intensive character development programs before beneficial relationships could be restored and institutional wealth support could resume under modified terms that ensured ongoing family respect and elderly appreciation, rather than continued entitlement attitudes and systematic family dismissal that undermined traditional values and generational respect. The success rate of these intervention programs, with beneficiaries demonstrating sustained character improvement and family respect and maintenance for periods extending beyond 8 years after intervention completion, validating the effectiveness of coordinated accountability measures and character development requirements as essential components of responsible family investment management and sustainable institutional wealth coordination that served both individual beneficiary development and broader community benefit through authentic family relationship modeling and elderly respect demonstration throughout the investment ownership experience. The international recognition that our network had received from private wealth regulatory agencies, family investment management organizations, and academic research institutions reflected the innovative approach that we had developed for combining technical expertise with family relationship education, creating a comprehensive model for responsible institutional wealth management that prioritized character development alongside investment planning and established new standards for ethical private investment coordination that influenced industry practices and regulatory expectations worldwide throughout the global investment community. My leadership role in developing these international standards for family institutional wealth coordination had resulted in invitations to serve as an expert witness in federal court cases involving private investment disputes that required sophisticated technical analysis, regulatory policy consultant for congressional hearings on institutional wealth regulation that influenced national financial policy, and technical advisor for international treaty negotiations regarding cross-border private investment coordination and family asset protection during periods of economic uncertainty and market volatility that could affect international investment values and wealth accessibility. The congressional testimony that I had provided during House Financial Services Committee hearings on private investment regulation had been instrumental in shaping federal policy regarding family institutional wealth protection, elderly financial security, and character assessment requirements for private investment beneficiaries, ensuring that regulatory frameworks recognized the importance of family respect obligations and elderly care responsibilities as essential components of legitimate investment coordination rather than optional considerations that could be ignored without consequences throughout the family investment ownership and institutional wealth management experience. The regulatory influence that I had achieved through my professional network and technical expertise created opportunities to advocate for policy frameworks that protected elderly private investment holders from financial abuse, family manipulation, and systematic dismissal by younger relatives who assumed that advanced age indicated technological incompetence rather than recognizing the professional expertise and investment coordination authority that many elderly individuals had developed throughout distinguished careers in wealth technology and institutional investment management. Throughout their professional development and career advance, the White House Economic Council consultation work that I had performed during 3 different presidential administrations included strategic planning for national private investment policy that influenced wealth accessibility throughout the United States, crisis response coordination during international wealth emergencies that threatened investment values and financial stability, and technical guidance for federal agencies implementing new regulatory frameworks that affected family institutional wealth and private investment management throughout the United States and international partner countries that required sophisticated coordination and federal oversight. During the 2020 financial market crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, my emergency coordination protocols had been instrumental in maintaining stability for over 400 family investment trusts and preventing the kind of institutional wealth panic that could have destroyed generational financial wealth for thousands of American families throughout the Midwest and the broader Central region. The crisis response systems that I had developed enabled real-time coordination between federal agencies, private investment institutions, and international regulatory bodies, ensuring that family investment remained protected while maintaining the transparency and accountability standards required for public confidence in private wealth systems throughout the crisis period. The Federal Reserve's adoption of my institutional wealth stress testing protocols had become the national standard for evaluating private investment institutions' stability during economic uncertainty and market volatility. These protocols had been implemented by financial agencies in 4 states and had successfully predicted and prevented institutional wealth failures that could have affected over $290 billion in family investment wealth across multiple state jurisdictions and investment markets throughout the United States. My consulting work with the International Monetary Fund included developing emergency response protocols for sovereign debt crises that affected private wealth institutions, creating coordination systems between national governments and private investment organizations, and establishing technical standards
for cross-border family asset protection during periods of political instability and economic uncertainty that threatened international private wealth operations and family investment security throughout global investment market. The World Bank's Investment Development Initiative, which I had helped design and implement, provided technical assistance and capacity building for emerging market countries seeking to establish legitimate private wealth sectors and family investment management infrastructure that could support economic development and financial stability. The program had successfully helped 30 countries develop regulatory frameworks and institutional capabilities that protected family investment assets while maintaining compliance with international anti-money laundering and terrorism financing prevention requirements throughout their investment development and wealth coordinations. But perhaps the most significant aspect of my international influence was my role in developing the Basel IV Investment Banking Accords, which established global standards for private wealth institution, capital requirements, risk management protocols, and regulatory oversight procedures that protected both individual family investment assets and international financial system stability throughout the global investment community. These accords had been ratified by 12 countries and had become the foundation for modern private wealth regulation worldwide throughout the international investment work. The European Union's adoption of my family investment protection directives had created a unified regulatory framework, enabled private wealth institutions to operate across national borders while maintaining the highest standards of client protection and regulatory compliance throughout the European investment market. These directives had been particularly important in preventing the kind of private investment tax evasion and money laundering scandals that had previously undermined public confidence in institutional wealth systems throughout European markets and international investment work. My role as a senior advisor to the Financial Stability Board included developing early warning systems for systemic risks that could affect private wealth institutions throughout the global investment community, creating coordination protocols between national regulatory agencies that ensured consistent oversight and compliance standards, and establishing technical standards for information sharing that protected both individual privacy rights and collective financial system security throughout the global private wealth community and international investment work. Sometimes the most powerful aspect of professional net development is the ability to coordinate immediate responses to family crisis situations while maintaining the confidentiality and privacy protections that distinguish legitimate intervention from public embarrassment or family humiliation that could damage relationships permanently, rather creating opportunities for character growth and authentic family healing that strengthened relationships and improved respect patterns for long-term family benefit and community modeling throughout the investment ownership and family relationship. The network coordination protocols that I had developed for responding to character assessment situations ensured that intervention measures were proportional to the severity of disrespect issues, focused on education rather than punishment, and designed to create sustainable behavior change, rather than temporary compliance that would revert to problematic patterns when oversight pressure was removed or accountability measures were discontinued after insufficient character development and family respect establishment. Throughout the investment ownership and family relation management experience, the comprehensive nature of my professional network and the sophisticated coordination systems that connected governmental agencies, private sector organizations, academic institutions, and international regulatory bodies created an infrastructure foundation that an immediate response to beneficiary character issues while maintaining the professional standards and ethical obligations that distinguished responsible family investment management from arbitrary financial control or manipulative family dynamics that could damage relationships and undermine trust. Rather than creating opportunities for growth, learning, and authentic relationship improvement based on mutual respect and shared family values, throughout the investment ownership experience.
Michael and Amanda's comfortable assumptions about their financial independence
And lifestyle security were built on a foundation of institutional wealth, coordination, and professional relationships that extended far beyond their comprehension or appreciation throughout their investment experience.
The seamless private investment services
that they had always taken for granted represented the culmination of decades of professional development, international cooperation, and technical innovation that required exactly the kind of expertise and authority that they had systematically dismissed as irrelevant to their modern Chicago suburban lifestyle and professional advancement strategies throughout their family planning and investment ownership experience. Institutional wealth empire that had operated invisibly throughout their comfortable assumptions about financial ownership entitlement would soon become the most visible demonstration of professional authority and family accountability that the Illinois private wealth community had ever witnessed.
Proving that respect for elderly relatives
isn't optional courtesy, it's the foundation for continued access to the sophisticated financial infrastructure that makes suburban lifestyles possible in competitive environments that require both professional excellence and character.
Navigate successfully throughout the investment ownership
and family relationship experience that determines long-term financial security and authentic family prosperity. At
March 8, 2024
began as what should have been a routine evening of reviewing quarterly investment reports and coordinating with international markets during their opening hours, a simple transition from my daily wealth management responsibilities to evening consultation work that would expose the true character of the son whose comfortable lifestyle I had been secretly funding for over 2 decades, and trigger the most comprehensive demonstration of financial authority that the Chicago investment community had ever witnessed.
While analyzing portfolio performance reports from our European partners and preparing strategic recommendations
for the morning coordination meeting with the Federal Reserve's Chicago District Office,
I experienced the crushing chest pain that every person my age fears might herald their final moment.
The sharp stabbing sensation that radiated down my left arm with unmistakable intensity, combined with the irregular heartbeat and sudden dizziness that indicated serious cardiac distress, prompted my immediate call to 911. And the beginning of what I thought might be my last few hours on Earth.
The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes of my emergency call,
staffed by paramedics who immediately recognized the severity of my condition and began administering emergency cardiac protocols while transporting me to Northwestern Memorial Hospital.
The 23-minute journey to the hospital passed in a blur of medical terminology,
IV preparation, and continuous monitoring that confirmed this was indeed a significant cardiac event, requiring immediate intervention and comprehensive emergency care that could determine whether I survived to see another day.
By 3:30 a.m. I was connected to an array of sophisticated monitoring equipment
in the cardiac intensive care unit, surrounded by medical professionals whose urgent consultations and concerned expressions made clear that my condition was being taken very seriously indeed.
Dr. Patricia Chen,
the attending cardiologist, explained that my electrocardiogram showed irregularities consistent with a major cardiac episode, and that the next several hours would be critical for determining the extent of any potential damage and the appropriate treatment protocols necessary for my stabilization and recovery.
As the nurses established additional IV lines
and prepared me for emergency cardiac catheterization, my first instinct was to call Michael, not because I needed him to make medical decisions. I had comprehensive advance directives, medical power of attorney arrangements with my attorney, and detailed instructions for every conceivable medical scenario, but because I believed that if this was indeed my final night on Earth, my only child should know.
He should have the opportunity to be present during what might be his mother's last few hours,
should understand that the woman whose modest lifestyle he had consistently dismissed was facing a life-threatening emergency, and perhaps our relationship deserved more than the perfunctory holiday visits and brief phone conversations that had characterized our interactions over the past several years. At 4:15 a.m., lying in the cardiac intensive care unit with monitors beeping around me and medical staff preparing for emergency procedures, I dialed Michael's number with trembling hands. The phone rang 4 times before his groggy voice answered with obvious irritation about being awakened at such an early hour. "Mom, do you know what time it is?" Michael said with the kind of professional annoyance he typically reserved for business interruption. "I have an important investor presentation at 9 a.m., and I need my sleep." "What's so urgent that it couldn't wait until a reasonable hour?" The immediate dismissal in his tone, even before understanding the reason for my call, revealed his fundamental approach to family emergency management and his comfortable assumption that elderly relatives should schedule their crises around his business convenience and professional advancement requirements. "Michael, I'm at Northwestern Memorial Hospital," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady despite the fear and physical discomfort. "I've had what the doctors think is a major cardiac event. They're preparing me for emergency procedures, and I wanted you to know, in case this is serious." The pause that followed lasted nearly 15 seconds, during which I could hear Amanda's voice in the background asking what was happening, and Michael's muffled response that suggested annoyance rather than concern about his mother's medical emergency. "Okay, well, that sounds like something the doctors can handle," Michael finally replied with the kind of efficiency he used for resolving business complications. "I mean, Northwestern is a good hospital, right? They know what they're doing with heart stuff. You'll probably be fine." The casual dismissal of my potentially life-threatening condition as heart stuff that the doctors could handle without family involvement revealed his complete detachment from family emergency obligations and his systematic approach to elderly medical crisis management that prioritized personal convenience over family responsibility and emergency support. "Michael, the doctor said the next few hours are critical," I continued, hoping to convey the seriousness of the situation. "I know you're busy, but I hoped you might be able to come to the hospital, just in case this is more serious than we hope." What followed was the conversation that would become the documented evidence justifying the most comprehensive estate revision in Illinois probate history. "Mom, honestly, I'm really too busy building my career to deal with elderly health drama right now," Michael said with confident dismissal that reflected months of strategic thinking about family obligation management. "We've got Series B funding discussions happening this week, potential acquisition talks with 2 major companies, and investor presentations that could determine the entire future direction of my business. I can't just drop everything every time you have a medical situation." The phrase "every time you have a medical situation" was particularly devastating, given that this was the first time I had ever called him about a health emergency, revealing his systematic reframing of family medical crises as recurring inconvenience rather than serious events, deserving immediate family attention and support. "Besides," Michael continued with the professional efficiency that he employed for difficult client conversations, "you should figure out your own medical situation, like other independent seniors. You're 74 years old, Mom. You can't expect your adult children to come running every time you feel unwell. That's what doctors and hospitals are for." The statement about handling my medical situation, like other independent seniors, represented the exact moment when Michael's systematic elderly dismissal transformed from strategic family crisis management into documented evidence of character priorities that violated every principle of family loyalty and elderly respect, that distinguished responsible adult children from those who prioritized career advancement over family emergency obligation. But the most devastating blow came in his final dismissal. "Look, I'm sure it's nothing serious. Older people go to the hospital all the time for things that turn out to be nothing. Get some rest, let the doctors do their job, and call me tomorrow if you're still concerned. Right now I need to focus on my presentation prep." As I lay in the cardiac intensive care unit, connected to monitors and facing what might be my final hours, listening to my son explain why his business presentation was more important than his mother's cardiac emergency, I experienced the devastating reality of family abandonment that would justify implementing institutional wealth ownership consequences and estate reconsideration protocols that would fundamentally alter his comfortable assumptions about inheritance entitlement and family financial security. "I understand your position completely, Michael," I replied with the kind of professional composure I had developed during 46 years of managing institutional investment crises and family relationship complications. "Thank you for clarifying your priorities and approach to family medical emergencies. I appreciate your honesty about what matters most to you, and I'll make sure to adjust my estate planning and financial arrangements accordingly." The relief in Michael's voice when he responded revealed his comfortable assumption that elderly relatives would accept medical abandonment without consequences that might affect family financial arrangements and inheritance expectations. "Great, Mom. I'm glad you understand. I hope everything works out fine at the hospital. Talk to you soon." The confident dismissal and immediate disconnection of the call demonstrated his complete lack of concern about potential implications of abandoning his mother during a cardiac emergency. His systematic approach to family crisis management that treated elderly medical needs as optional obligation, and his fundamental understanding of how family loyalty and character assessment affected continued eligibility for institutional wealth support and inheritance coordination throughout family financial planning. As I lay in the hospital bed while Michael returned to sleep in preparation for his important business presentation, I began accessing the comprehensive institutional wealth management systems that would transform his comfortable assumptions about inheritance entitlement into the most expensive lesson about family loyalty and elderly respect that any Chicago entrepreneur had ever received.
At 5:30 a.m., using my secure tablet that maintained encrypted connections to my wealth management operations center, I initiated the first phase of what would become the most comprehensive beneficiary review in Illinois estate planning history by accessing the Hartwell Family Trust database systems and implementing beneficiary conduct assessment status for Michael David Sinclair's institutional wealth accounts. The administrative classification that I applied indicated potential beneficiary character violations, requiring comprehensive family loyalty evaluation throughout the regional private wealth management network. The beneficiary assessment protocols that I activated included comprehensive coordination that affected Michael's emergency family trust access, inheritance eligibility verification, educational trust fund distribution, and investment coordination privileges that determined his continued wealth support and financial planning security. The systematic nature of the classification modifications ensured that every platform and system connected to his wealth expectations experienced coordinated changes that created immediate complications for his business financing and long-term consequences for his family's financial security. By 7:45 a.m., the first automated notifications had been generated by trust systems that detected beneficiary inequalities affecting Michael's institutional wealth status and private investment coordination assessment. The alert protocols that I had implemented included federal notification requirements that triggered immediate evaluation of private wealth distribution, eligibility, and financial coordination assessment that could affect his family's investment planning calculations based on character evaluation standards and family loyalty verification protocols. The first immediate impact of my institutional wealth modifications became apparent when Michael attempted to access his quarterly family trust distribution at 8:20 a.m. and discovered that his institutional wealth accounts had been classified as under beneficiary review, pending character assessment, by the Illinois Regional Private Investment Authority. The panic that followed his discovery revealed the extent to which his business operations and comfortable lifestyle depended on institutional wealth distributions and trust coordination that he had never understood or appreciated. The panicked phone call that I received came from Michael at 9:45 a.m., with obvious desperation and confusion about the administrative complications affecting his institutional wealth access and family financial planning. "Mom, something terrible is happening with our family trust accounts and financial coordination," he announced with professional emergency language that revealed his immediate understanding of catastrophic wealth implications. "Our institutional investment distributions have been suspended, and the federal authority is requesting documentation about beneficiary conduct evaluation and family loyalty verification that we don't understand. The Cook County Wealth Authority is requesting immediate documentation about our institutional investment status and character assessment verification. Michael continued with growing panic about the implications for his business financing and family's financial security planning. This is affecting our business standing and potentially compromising our equity access, with programs that require verified family wealth backing and accurate financial positioning. The irony of Michael's desperate concern about family loyalty verification when calling from his office, where he was preparing for the business presentation that had been more important than his mother's cardiac emergency, was not lost on me, as I coordinated the systematic review of his wealth eligibility from my hospital bed. Michael, the character assessment protocols are standard procedures for institutional wealth coordination, I replied with professional calm while monitoring my cardiac reading. The review process evaluates whether beneficiaries demonstrate the family values and elderly respect that qualify them for continued trust support and inheritance coordination. Michael asked with genuine confusion about the connection between family behavior and wealth eligibility. What does character assessment have to do with family trust distributions and business financing coordination? The comprehensive nature of Michael and Amanda's institutional wealth classification complications had generated legal consultation fees exceeding $127,000, administrative documentation requirements that consumed over 240 hours of their professional time, and financial standing complications that required extensive verification procedures and potential lifestyle restructuring based on wealth status uncertainty and trust administration challenge. The most shocking revelation came on March 18, when Michael discovered the true ownership structure of his family's wealth through legal documentation required for the institutional investment status verification process. The financial records that his attorney obtained revealed that the comfortable lifestyle he had always assumed was built on his business success was actually coordinated through Hartwell Investment Holdings, with Eleanor Catherine Hartwell-Sinclair listed as the primary managing member and decision-making authority for all family wealth matters. The moment of recognition that Michael experienced when he realized that the sick old woman, whose cardiac emergency he had dismissed as inconvenient elderly health drama, was actually the legal controller of his family's financial security, represented the most devastating character assessment revelation in Illinois institutional wealth history. His systematic family medical crisis dismissal and elderly abandonment hadn't just violated family loyalty obligations, they had been directed toward the very person whose private wealth authority determined his family's continued financial security and lifestyle maintenance. But the full scope of the revelation was yet to come. The detailed financial documentation that his attorneys required for the wealth status verification process revealed that Eleanor's authority extended far beyond simple family trust management. The $2.1 million inheritance that Michael had been confidently expecting was just a small portion of a comprehensive wealth empire that included primary control of $47 million in private investment portfolios, managing authority over educational trust funds that had financed his MBA and business development, coordination responsibility for the venture capital networks that had provided his Series A funding, ownership oversight of the real estate investments that had enabled his Lincoln Park townhouse purchase, emergency financial response protocols that had protected his business during market downturns, strategic investment planning that had created every major financial advantage he had ever received. The documentation revealed that Michael's entire adult life, his education, his business development, his comfortable lifestyle, family's financial security had been built on the invisible coordination and generous support of the very person he had abandoned during her medical emergency, because he was too busy building his career to deal with elderly health drama. When Michael called me on March 20th with genuine terror in his voice and desperate confusion about the institutional wealth ownership revelations affecting his family's financial security, something remarkable began to happen that would transform this story from simple private investment administration into a profound lesson about family values and elderly respect. "Mom, I think I've made the most terrible mistake of my life," Michael said during our emotional conversation that would mark the beginning of his character transformation. "I was so focused on building my business and advancing my career that I completely lost sight of what really matters: respect for family relationships, appreciation for elderly wisdom, and understanding that business success means nothing if you achieve it by abandoning the people who support and care about your family's well-being." The genuine remorse that Michael expressed during our conversation represented the first authentic character development he had demonstrated since establishing his systematic approach to elderly relationship management. His recognition that business advancement without family loyalty was meaningless success revealed the kind of character growth that distinguished deserving wealth support from permanent institutional investment, privilege suspension. But rather than simply resuming their private wealth coordination, or implementing punitive measures that would destroy their financial security, I proposed something that would serve both character development and community benefit while creating opportunities for authentic family healing and meaningful financial responsibility. I created the Wealth Development Community Service Program that would operate for 36 months, providing financial literacy education and institutional investment coordination for elderly community members, while requiring their direct participation in elderly financial services under my supervision as program coordinator. The Wealth Development Community Service Program would require Michael and Amanda to work alongside experienced financial literacy specialists, community development workers, and elderly service professionals who understood the value of traditional wisdom and generational respect while providing essential institutional investment education to underserved elderly populations throughout Cook County and the greater Illinois region. The transformation that began during the first month of the program exceeded even my own expectations for what community service could accomplish when combined with character accountability and elderly recognition. Michael's initial reluctance to participate in hands-on elderly financial work gradually evolved into genuine appreciation for the seniors we served and understanding of the administrative expertise required for effective institutional wealth coordination and family investment management. The elderly community members who worked alongside Michael and Amanda included retired investment professionals, former wealth administrators, and institutional financial professionals whose lifetime of service and professional expertise provided daily examples of the elderly wisdom and community contribution that they had dismissed during their systematic family relationship restructuring and business advancement optimization strategy. Mr. Abraham Kowalski, an 82-year-old retired wealth management director who had spent 48 years developing institutional investment programs for major Illinois financial institutions, became particularly influential in helping Michael understand the connection between family respect and community responsibility. "Young man," he told Michael during their 18th week of working together, "I've seen thousands of families over the year, and I can tell you that the most successful communities always start with families that understand how to honor their elderly members and learn from generational wisdom rather than dismissing us as obstacles to overcome." Mrs. Dorothy Chen, a 79-year-old former financial consultant who had managed investment portfolios for over 340 Chicago families during her distinguished career, provided Michael with daily examples of the sophisticated financial expertise that elderly professionals possess. "Your mother's work with institutional wealth coordination is legendary in our community," she explained during one of their consultation sessions. "The systems she developed have protected thousands of families, and the respect she shows for elderly wisdom has created opportunities for meaningful community contribution that extends far beyond simple financial management." The 36 months of program operation created measurable community impact that included coordinating institutional wealth education for over 400 elderly community members, providing financial literacy training to 6, and creating ongoing support networks that continued serving seniors long after the formal program concluded. The success of the program attracted attention from institutional wealth administrators throughout Illinois,
and established a model for family-based community service that honored both elderly needs and intergenerational collaboration. But perhaps the most significant transformation was the change in Michael and Amanda's understanding of family relationships and the value of elderly wisdom in creating meaningful community contribution. Their systematic elderly dismissal and business advancement optimization strategies replaced by genuine appreciation for my institutional wealth expertise and recognition of how family respect and community service could create personal satisfaction and family fulfillment that exceeded anything achievable through competitive business advancement and strategic elderly management. During the second year of their community service, Michael began incorporating elderly financial education into his business model, creating Innovate Tech Solutions, Senior Financial Technology Initiative, that provided pro bono software development and technical support for elderly community organizations throughout the Chicago area. The initiative reflected his growing understanding that technological expertise should serve community needs, rather than simply generating business profits, and that authentic professional success required meaningful contribution to the welfare of all community members, particularly those whose experience and wisdom deserved respect and support. Amanda's involvement in the program led to her development of specialized expertise in elderly financial advocacy, eventually earning certification as a senior financial rights coordinator through the Illinois Department of Elder Affairs. Her work coordinating financial protection services for elderly community members provided meaningful professional engagement, while honoring the elderly wisdom and community contribution that she had previously failed to recognize and appreciate. The family's approach to wealth management was transformed from a focus on personal accumulation and lifestyle enhancement to a commitment to community benefit and intergenerational financial education. Michael's business success became a platform for creating opportunities for elderly community members to share their expertise and receive appropriate recognition for their lifetime of professional achievement and community contribution. 5 years later, Michael's transformation had become a model for family-based community service throughout Illinois, with his story featured in community development publications and institutional wealth and inspiration journals as an example of how private investment intervention could create family healing and authentic elderly appreciation. His work coordinating the annual Illinois Family Investment Responsibility Network, which operated in 67 communities throughout the state, provided ongoing opportunities for meaningful contribution, while maintaining the family relationships and elderly respect that he had learned through his wealth service experience. The beautiful home in Winnipeg where Michael, Amanda, and their twin daughters now lived, purchased through their own legitimate financing after demonstrating sustained character development and family respect, provided comfortable family living while supporting their elderly advocacy work. The elegant but modest home reflected their understanding that true satisfaction came from authentic relationships and community contribution, rather than competitive family positioning and systematic elderly dismissal. Amanda's current position as Senior Financial Advocacy Director at Illinois Department of Elder Affairs, earning $127,000 annually while coordinating elderly institutional wealth programs and family financial education throughout the region, provided meaningful professional work that honored both her organizational expertise and her commitment to community service and family value. Michael's business had evolved into a hybrid model that balanced profitable technology development with comprehensive elderly financial education and community service coordination. Innovate Tech Solutions now donated 30% of its annual profits to elderly financial literacy programs and employed 12 elderly financial professionals as senior consultants, creating meaningful professional opportunities for seniors while benefiting from their decades of expertise and institutional knowledge. The twins, Sophia and Isabella, now 13 years, participated regularly in elderly community service projects and had developed genuine appreciation for intergenerational relationships and elderly wisdom that distinguished their character development from typical suburban teenage priorities focused on social media and material accumulation. Their involvement in community service had created authentic friendships with elderly community members, and understanding of how generational respect contributed to meaningful personal development and community benefit. As I write this final chapter from my beautiful lakefront home in Lake Forest, Illinois, purchased with proceeds from my institutional wealth consultation work, I'm surrounded by family photographs that document our journey toward authentic relationships and mutual respect, professional commendations that honor my career achievement, and community recognition that celebrates the Wealth Development Community Service Program's ongoing impact throughout the Illinois region. The son who told me he was too busy building his career to deal with elderly health drama discovered that respect for elderly relatives isn't optional accommodation, it's the foundation for institutional wealth eligibility and private investment coordination that determines whether families build meaningful legacies or destroy opportunities through systematic dismissal of generational wisdom and traditional value. The cardiac emergency that had been dismissed as inconvenient elderly health drama became the foundation for a community wealth program that served hundreds of elderly residents, while teaching Michael and Amanda about the critical importance of elderly respect and family loyalty. The system family medical crisis dismissal that had been used to prioritize business presentations over elderly medical emergencies was transformed into community service that demonstrated how institutional wealth administration and family healing could create opportunities for authentic contribution, meaningful personal satisfaction. The $2.1 million inheritance that Michael had been confidently expecting was restructured into a graduated distribution system tied to sustained community service and elderly respect demonstration, rather than receiving wealth as an entitlement. Michael now earned his inheritance through documented contributions to elderly community welfare and ongoing participation in intergenerational financial education programs that honored elderly wisdom while creating meaningful professional opportunities for senior community members. The final distribution of his inheritance came on his 47th birthday, 5 years after his transformation began, when he received the full amount along with a letter that I had written explaining how his journey from business-focused eldest son to community-minded family leader had restored my faith in his character and demonstrated his worthiness for the family wealth that his ancestors had built through generations of hard work, community service, and respect for elderly wisdom. The program that had begun as character accountability for one family's elderly dismissal had grown into a statewide model that influenced how families approached intergenerational relationships and elderly care throughout Illinois. The Hartwell model had been implemented in over 180 communities across 12 states, creating opportunities for thousands of families to heal relationships damaged by elderly dismissal and discover the value of intergenerational cooperation in building stronger communities and more meaningful family relations. Michael's speaking engagements at business conferences and family service organizations provided opportunities to share his transformation story and encourage other professionals to examine their own approaches to elderly relationships and family loyalty obligations. His presentations emphasized how business success without family respect created hollow achievements that failed to provide authentic satisfaction or meaningful legacy development for future generations. The academic research that had emerged from our program's success led to new understanding of how elderly respect and intergenerational cooperation contributed to community stability and economic development. Universities throughout the Midwest had incorporated our findings into their business ethics, curricula, and social work training programs, ensuring that future professionals understood the connection between family values and community service in creating sustainable prosperity and authentic success. Remember, institutional wealth ownership and private investment coordination aren't guaranteed family privileges, they're earned recognition of demonstrated character and elderly respect that creates foundation for financial credibility and authentic community contribution. That disappeared from family importance and became business inconvenience taught Michael and Amanda about the true meaning of private wealth administration and the critical importance of honoring the elderly wisdom that distinguished lasting financial responsibility from superficial lifestyle presentation and systematic elderly dismissal. Sometimes the most valuable lesson you can teach ungrateful family members is that wealth privilege isn't automatic entitlement, it's earned recognition that continues only when families demonstrate appropriate respect for elderly wisdom, traditional values that create the foundation for authentic community service and meaningful institutional wealth administration. The private investment coordination that had protected their comfortable lifestyle became the foundation for their transformation into community servants who understood that true success comes from serving others while honoring the elderly relatives whose lifetime of expertise and service created every opportunity for authentic contribution and family legacy development. The man who had been too busy building his career to visit his mother during her cardiac emergency discovered that career advancement without family loyalty creates empty success that fails to provide authentic satisfaction or meaningful contribution to community welfare. The business presentation that had been more important than his mother's medical crisis became the catalyst for understanding that professional achievement means nothing without the family relationships and elderly respect that create opportunities for authentic legacy development and intergenerational wisdom sharing. Today, as Michael coordinates the Illinois Family Investment Responsibility Network and Amanda leads elderly financial advocacy programs throughout the state, they understand that the cardiac emergency they initially dismissed as inconvenient elderly health drama was actually the beginning of their education about what matters most in life: family, respect, service, and the wisdom that comes from honoring those whose experience and generosity create every opportunity for authentic success and meaningful community contribution. The $47 million wealth empire that operates invisibly behind their comfortable lifestyle continues to serve families throughout the region. But now Michael and Amanda understand their roles as stewards rather than entitled beneficiaries, ensuring that the next generation learns from their transformation and carries forward the values of elderly respect and community service that distinguish lasting family success from temporary material accumulation and superficial lifestyle achievement. The lesson is clear: respect for elderly relatives isn't optional courtesy, it's the foundation for authentic relationships, meaningful success, and the kind of family legacy that creates opportunities for genuine contribution and lasting prosperity across generations. The institutional wealth that supports comfortable lifestyles comes with responsibilities to honor those whose wisdom and generosity make such advantages possible, and families who forget these obligations discover that financial security depends on character, accountability, and elderly respect rather than business achievement and material accumulation. My son learned that lesson the hard way, but his transformation demonstrates that it's never too late to restore damaged relationships and discover the true meaning of family loyalty and community service. The cardiac emergency that began this story became the foundation for a family legacy that will serve elderly communities for generations to come, proving that even the most devastating character failures can become opportunities for authentic growth and meaningful contribution when families choose respect over convenience and community service over individual advancement.